The flute that I hold in my hand is actually something that helped me through high school a little bit. This is a metal flute, but it is tuned Native American. I made it the same way. I split it and everything, so this is mine. This is something I like to treasure a lot. The song I'm going to be playing is called Dedications to one of my best friends who passed away just recently, actually, Hi Little Boy. It's a song for her that I play for a lot of the people around town to kind of spread the love a little bit. Like thank you for this opportunity to play this. Thank you. The song that I'm about to play now is a happy song. I made it at my sister Andrea's house when I was sitting around. I was kind of bored, so yeah, you know, not much to do with sister's house. She's out of town. So I made a song. It's about getting people to talk about dancing and all sorts of other stuff. It's called Talk.
know exactly what's going to get said tonight. But I feel I have a responsibility to tell you, I'm just going to say it now so we have an understanding. Yeah, I'm crazy. I was born crazy, right? Didn't really understand it at the time. And then the worlds I went through to get to here just made me crazier. So whatever I have to say, I just want you to have that in, take it from there. And if I say something that that you don't agree with, I just would like it to be left at that. Because it's just... And because I deal with perceptual realities, in some kind of a thing. Life is about perceptual realities. Well, I'm going to start with some poems, and then we'll just kind of see. I flew with the eagles until I fell from the nest. I ran with the wolves, then got lost from the pack. Slowly, I go crazy every day. Some days run faster than others. I never strayed into heaven. It was hard getting past hell. I traveled through and beyond the death and birth of man. I am Iktomi. Imagine running out of imagine, mistaking authority for power, weaving life's free spirit into patterns of control. I heard all that was said. Until now, I hear nothing at all. The edge between twilight and dark, the great lie lurks. Prostitution of soul, anyone can do it or not. I went down some roads that stopped me dead in my tracks. I've been the mirror to others' reflecting selves. I've known love that can't help but love, and I've been close to that hurting way of love. I flew with the eagles until I fell from the nest. I ran with the wolves, then got lost from the pack. From the earth, wind cave memories, one with the sky, time of different motions, dog days dreamer, chasing the neon, woven into minds. I am Iktomi. From my place in line, I fell out of order. I've been here, I've been there, I've been anywhere, and I haven't been anywhere, and I'll be back again. Imagine running out of imagine, mistaking authority for power, weaving life's free spirit into patterns of control. In the reality of many realities, how we see what we see affects the quality of our reality. We are children of earth and sky, DNA, descendant, now ancestor, human being, physical spirit, bone, flesh, blood as spirit, metal, mineral, water as spirit. We are in time and space, but we're from beyond time and space. The past is part of the present. The future is part of the present. Life and being are interwoven. We are the DNA of earth, moon, planets, stars. We are related to the universal. Creator created creation, spirit and intelligence with clarity, being and human as power. We are a part of the memories of evolution. These memories carry knowledge. These memories carry our identity. Beneath race, gender, class, age, beneath citizen, business, state, religion, we are human beings. And these memories are trying to remind us, human beings, it is time to rise up. Remember who you are. Attitudes protected the rage from what it might do. The smiling times soothed the moments that needed it most. Rage. What is it about this reality that no one's see the same? The pain spreads in the earth, a spreading disease carried from mind to mind. Afraid to be coherent, the thinking beings perish to dimensions of the lie, treating earth like a scarlet woman, games of master and slave. Rage, there is no justice or way to undo what is done. The river of fire must find the sea. Time doesn't heal. Time only brings distance to what we can't get over or what we can't get past. Rage started night fires. Nothing remains, anything goes. Teardrops of silence are colors. Laughter is a painted face, the mask of rationality. Tomorrow is a scar. Today is the wound. Rage, the lie and the pretense, deal a narcotic hope. In the reality of despair, as the plastic molds, submit to the fantasy of definition, but don't depend on you. So in my perception of reality, I spend a great deal of time kind of just wondering. Because sometimes, I feel like I'm in a reality. See, to me, it's a technologic perceptual reality that we're in. And the technologic perceptual reality has created like an illusion of what reality really is all about and what true value, what reality is really all about. But the illusion, see, and we've been programmed into the illusion, see, to me. And it's a way of separating us from the reality of power. But anyway, we're in a technologic perceptual reality, right? And this technologic perceptual reality, to me, it's like the human beings no longer remember that they're human beings. Because they can say the word doesn't mean they know what it means or understands what it means. See, so in a way, it's like we're in a reality where nobody really knows who they are anymore. They don't really understand the language that they're speaking. They have no memory of an ancestral past, so they have no memory of beginning. They have no beginning memory. And they basically feel powerless to deal with the realities that this technologic perceptual reality imposes upon them. And it's like, and this whole thing that happens, all right, it to me is done deliberately, is deliberately done. It's deliberately done to us as a part of a civilizing process. I think we're being, all right, let's go back to who we are. Because I think it's important that we understand who we are. We are human beings. Human being. Human, the visible, visible, being the invisible, visible. Human, the DNA of the human, the bone, flesh, and blood of the human is literally it's made up of the metals, minerals, and liquids of the earth. So we are literally shapes of the earth. We are just earth forms. That's the human. That's the reality. That's the human reality. We are earth forms, and all things of the earth have the same DNA, the same. The flesh, bone, flesh, and blood is different shape, different form, but it's all the same. We all come from this reality of earth. So the earth truly is our mother, truly. Now, the invisible, visible, the being part, and we all know we have being because we know. So we know we have it. But being comes from our relationship to the sun and the sky and the universe, the being. The moon, just the planets, everything that's in the universe, our being, the being part, that spirit part of us is connected to that relationship to reality. The sun literally is our father, like the mother literally is our mother, because the rays of light that come from the sun, this is the sperm that gives life to the womb that earth represents. See, so our connection to reality and the reality of power is through having an understanding about our relationship to who we really are. Being able to recognize ourselves. But we don't recognize ourselves. See, and I'm saying, to me, it's like, see, it was deliberate. It's a deliberate thing. It's not an accident. It's a deliberate thing. So let's go back to our relationship to reality with the earth as the mother. The bone, flesh, and blood of the earth that's called uranium, the bone, flesh, and blood that is called uranium, you can take that uranium with the technological reality and put it through a mining process and convert the being part of that DNA, that bone, flesh, and blood, into a form of energy. You can do it with fossils. Take the fossils out, put them through the mining process, convert the being part of that into a form of energy. Well, to make civilization run, all right, the being part of human is being mined through the human. And this all has to do with perceptual reality. So as human beings, we live with a natural reality encoded in the DNA through genetic memory, but we also live with an imposed illusion of reality. Like dividing in things. We understand that if you take the uranium and you put it through this mining process, as a result of this, there's toxic waste and poison. We understand that. Fossils, we understand that. There's toxic waste, there's toxic and poison as a result of this. Well, mining the being part of human also leaves toxic and poison. See, every fear, doubt, and insecurity that we have, all right, this is the toxic and the poison that is left over from the mining process. This is the pollution of our consciousness, all right? This is the pollution of our relationship to the reality of self. See, so there's a result to all this, because all things remain consistent. But as human beings, as human beings, we have it's encoded in the DNA. It's like a genetic memory. And encoded in the DNA of every individual human being, and therefore in a collective manner also, all right, is the experience of our individual lineage from our very beginning. It's just there. It's just there. And within that there is a genetic memory. But we have been programmed in such a way that we can't access. See, the more civilized we become, the less our ability to access this information, because it's almost like knowledge. It's inherent knowledge that comes from an ancestral relationship to reality. But we get separated from that knowledge. Because a part of what civilizing does, the way that it works, the technologic civilizing process, the way that it works, is it erases the memories of the civilized. See, in the memories of the civilized, they forget that they had ancestors. See, they go back maybe a couple, 2 or 3 generations, remember that, And the memory that they have as well, they were a worker here, or they were a farmer, or they were struggling or starving. But they have no memory of an ancestry in an evolutionary sense that introduced some kind of a perception of reality that was clear and balanced. See, that memory's been erased. But within our genetic memory, what's through instinct, intuition, whatever, within our genetic memory, see, we have a common collective memory. And that common collective memory is that we are all the descendants of tribes. Each and every human being comes from a tribe. Each and every human being is the descendant of a tribe. And within that reality, back in our ancestral memory, see, we knew that we were the children of the earth. We knew that. And we knew that we were borrowing the present from the past, and we were borrowing it from the future also. So we knew we didn't own it. We knew that whatever was going on here, we were just kind of, our purpose was to keep balance. Keep human balance so that it doesn't distort the rest of the natural world. So that was our purpose, was to keep in balance the human participation, because the human participation in its own way is very deadly to the natural world. It brings its own disease. It's a diseased perceptual reality. Then the earth gets attacked. It's like cancer eating something. So we understood in our genetic tribal ancestry that our purpose in life was to keep the balance. To keep the balance. It wasn't about winning and losing. It was about keeping the balance. And because we understood we were borrowing from the past and we were borrowing from the future, because we understood that all things had spirit, we were a part of a spiritual perceptual reality. And the way that manifested in the behavior of the tribe, of the tribal ancestor, the way that manifested was they knew that life was about responsibility. The human being and the participation of the human being in this reality is about responsibility. See, they understood this, so they knew who they were, they knew what they were saying, they knew they were whole. We have this in common. We are all the descendants of this type of an ancestry. Each and every one of us is the descendant of that perceptual reality. But in the evolution, because we're a part of an evolutionary reality, so, and in the evolution, our role is to keep balance. This morning, the mirror didn't know who I was today. I remember some of the whatever happened to's, then sometimes I'm too occasional to understand or comprehend. What I believed was because I was delusional. There's no other explanation. Clinging to the program, obviously, is the obvious lie. The past is more than a memory. Experiencing the future before the fantasy was the dream. Fantasy is the leftovers, a toxic waste from mining the dream. It's a perceptual thing. This technologic mental state is this reality, or more desperate lies. Manufacturing perceptions, packaging free thinking into reacted thought. Sometimes when it rains, it's not that simple when the sky has reasons to cry. This evening, the mirror saw that I looked kind of familiar tonight. Found in the street of images next door to the school of hard knocks and promise more promises. There's this political social disease, got the people living on their knees, playing stand-up behind the mask of pride. Submission makes every man a bride. In the madhouse of fantasies, there was democracy down on her back. Big business and feds crawling all over her, crooning, "You might as well enjoy it," while the civilized pass by with closed eyes. The cross and its shadow, the double cross. Obedience is heaven, all else leads to hell. Do the work, pay the tax, don't trust yourself. Shoot up all the material you can get, then try to get your hands on more. Let the crooked dealer keep the score. Lead your mind into guilt, sin, and regret. The stage is set, puppeteer, strings, and puppet. Found in the street of images, there are dreams trying to breathe life and assistance to the mind. What we believe is what we create. Predators don't tell the truth. To them, hate is love. Love is hate. There are dreams trying to get in, bring back together destiny and our fate. There are dreams waiting to fulfill the mind. Starve predator and leave this scene behind. As human beings, what we were given to fulfill all of this, balance, to deal with life, is intelligence. And each and every human being is given exactly as much intelligence as they need to have their life participation in this reality. And intelligence. Because, I think that however it is we would say or want or hope or desire all these things to respect our Creator, I think that if we don't respect our intelligence, then we're not respecting our Creator the way we should be respecting our Creator. Because this is the gift that the Creator gave to the human being. If we understand it as a gift, it's a gift that the Creator gave to the human being because it is our protection. It's our self-defense. It's our healing. All right? Our intelligence. Our intelligence. See, our intelligence is our relationship to power, how clearly and coherently we use our intelligence. That's our relationship to the reality of power, is through clear, coherent use of our intelligence. And to our intelligence, this is like our imagination, our creativity, our thoughts, our understanding, our action. Our intelligence. See, and it's always it's the perpetual motion trip. You know, it's always going on. It's always working. It never shuts down. Our intelligence is always happening. But see, we don't use our intelligence anymore. We've been programmed in such a way that someone else is using our intelligence. And it, you know, like turning, this is what this some kind of a way turns into fuel to run a larger system. And what I'm saying about this now is like the poison, the toxic waste from the mining of the being, the fears, doubts, and insecurities. Think about intelligence, creativity, imagination, and things of this nature, all right? And then think about the fears and doubts and insecurities. See, and this is about facing the reality of who we are to ourselves, being real to ourselves in order to be real to our Creator, in order to synchronize our prayers or whatever it is. But when we look at ourselves, all right, we look at ourselves and think about what are my fears, doubts, and insecurities, and how much of my life, how much of my day do they affect? How much of my perception of reality do they affect? You know, how much do they affect the others of the people that I am close to? And how much do theirs affect them, and how much do theirs affect me? That's our imagination, our creativity, and our thoughts set into action in a misunderstood perception of reality. So this is just like an example of the power that our intelligence represents and our accessibility to it. But we've been programmed in a way, see, to not recognize that that's really what it is. It's power that we use against ourselves. And so, you know, and it creates the energy that makes these very aggressive behavior patterns emerge here, these civilizations, the way that they behave. So if we had clear and coherent, if we sought clear and coherent use of our intelligence, things can happen. But we've been just programmed and conditioned in such a way, all right, to use it to create our own. Every day when we get up, we create our own reality because it's done through how we're going to perceive reality. We create our own reality, see, and they put us into the box of reacted thought. Reacted thought, that's the thought I had yesterday, and the day before, and the day before, and 10 years ago, and 20 years ago, right? And that thought is basically because too many people view their participation in this reality from their inabilities, not from their abilities. And it's got to do with this doubt, fear, and blame thing, all right, that we have put into ourselves. All right? We had it put into us, and it bred very well, and it started to affect our perception of reality, and we can't see ourselves clearly. So clarity is really an objective, right? And we use our intelligence all the time. So it's just a matter of us making certain decisions and understandings that we will decide how we're going to use it in a more clear, coherent manner. Because everything that's ever happened, when you come down to it, the civilizing process is about altering the perceptual reality of the civilized. Alter their perceptual reality. It's always about altering the perceptual reality, all right? And when you look at it, you know, and you think, if we could look at each human mind, let's say every human being, and if in a theoretical reality, if each human mind, you know, the intelligence was used with clarity and coherency, right? And you can look at it, you look at that as an energy pool, how much energy that is. Untapped resource, see? And somebody's tapping it because somebody sees what I'm talking about, right? And they've been tapping it for 1,000 years or 3,000 years, you know, as they've been evolving, as this perception has evolved here. Because with our, and the main thing that seems to be, that separates us from understanding the reality of who we are through our intelligence, all right? This idea, and I think the main thing that starts it, the first plant, the seed, the first thing that plants that and alters that perceptual reality in us is this idea of guilt, sin, and blame. All right? You know, this idea of guilt, sin, and blame. See, because we live in a technological reality now where it's pretty well accepted that it's the dogma, and I know that it affects people because it gets everybody when they're young. See, that's when everybody, you know, and then that'll ride all the life, you know, unless we understand to change it. But the idea that we committed a moral crime for being born, see, is ludicrous. I mean, it's insane. It is not a clear, coherent, there's no basis to it, all right? But when we take it into our consciousness and believe it, we give it reality. And then we no longer see ourselves clearly. We see ourselves in a diminished light. All right? And all these things that happen are basically in a way to make us see ourselves to diminish the light that we see our own selves in. Now, I mean, I really think in a way it kind of has that effect. But see, we're not in the genetic tribal memory. Life was a gift. So when you were born, it was like an exchange of gifts, a gift to a gift. And when you died, it was still an exchange of gifts, a gift to a gift, because the being continued. See, and the closest we came to worshiping anything about the Creator in the human form was we prayed to the ancestors. But we created in our in the collective genetic tribal memory, there was no male or female ultimate Creator. Did not exist. Did not exist. The ultimate Creator did not have human form. All right? The genders had their roles and their places in how we viewed our perception of reality, but the ultimate Creator had no human form. And it was very important to the reality, because then we didn't have sexism and we didn't have racism. Because when the ultimate Creator took human form, all right, then it meant that we were better than the rest of the natural world. And this is so all the other things now emanated out of that, giving the ultimate Creator human form. Because it was wrong. It was a wrong, distorted perception of reality, because it now meant that, but prior to that, but this idea was imposed upon our ancestors because however it emerged, it was imposed upon our ancestors. And when it was imposed upon our ancestors, but it's got to do with the evolution of technology, the technologic perceptional reality. So we live in a spiritual reality, and the technologic perceptional reality, as it's evolving, it created a religious reality to mirror the spiritual reality. Because all human beings want to know about where they come from. Right? And they have their own systems on how they access this. So a religious perceptional reality was created because the religious perceptional reality is based upon the idea of a human form God. See, and it is different from how we perceive reality. So anyway, see, and under this new perceptional reality that was created, see, this is where the idea came. See, it taught us that we committed a crime for being born. It was a moral crime that we committed for being born. And so as soon as we believe that lie, we diminish how we see ourselves in our own light. And it says because we committed this moral crime for being born, then we have a responsibility to submit to the male dominator system of control. And if we don't, and if we question any aspect of it, that makes us even more wrong. We got more sin, more guilt. See, everything is there. It's programmed in such a way, don't question it, because if you question it, see, then you diminish your light. But the reality is if you question it, you don't diminish your light. And this affected everything that we've ever done. And it was a seed to evolving this thing here where we see by the time we become adults. Actually, the way this program is going now, it's happening more and more young. People perceive their participation in the world from their inabilities, not from their abilities. It's like being turned into fuel. And the cure to it is when we make the decision that we're going to just go after seeing reality more clearly, more coherently. The cure to it is being real to ourselves. I mean, the cure to it is respecting our intelligence and using our thinking to think. Oh yeah, back to reactive thought, see, because we perceive, so every day that we create our own misery, all right, no matter how we disguise it, we're doing it with reactive thought. But we have intelligence, and intelligence is supposed to work on active thought, not reactive thought. Now, reactive thought, then that means all those fears and doubts and insecurities and all that diminished light that got programmed into us. See, within every thought that we do, basically most of what we do is reactive thought because they're reactions to those things that were planted in how we perceive ourselves. So that it's not really original thinking. It's reacted thought. But it creates the illusion that we're thinking. It's tricky. Right? But this is why we need to be real to ourselves, because I guarantee you, if we can't be, another sign of respect to the Creator, no matter how we pray to this Creator, is to be real to ourselves. Because if we can't face ourselves, you know, then it's just all, we're just eating ourselves up for nothing. If we can't face ourselves. See, and I think, and to understand, again, see, but again, this other thing about something being wrong, see, the trinity of the chain, guilt, sin, and blame. See, one of the things that it did, see, one of the things I find interesting about guilt, right, is the only thing that it really accomplishes is that whoever gets it, they get more. So I know there's something wrong there, right? Because if it's that bad, see, then the objective would be to make less. But I think that whole perception, you know, in many ways, see, I think that it's not, that it runs contrary to life being about responsibility, right? Because, you know, we are responsible for what we do. And that's what it is. Nobody can make me do anything, you know. I mean, well, no, they can't. They make a lot of pressure points, you know, and get me to do what they want me to do, but they can't make me do it if I don't make the decision to do it. See, so in most circumstances in life, just in living our lives, I can't blame somebody for what I have done. I got to take the heat. See, but that's what life is about. It's about responsibility. All right? And, you know, back in the tribal memory, see, when we were born into a world that welcomed us, you know, thanks for being here and all that. All right, when we were born into that world, they gave us all the knowledge they had. All of the knowledge, not information, knowledge. Gave us the knowledge, all right? All the knowledge that they had, shared it with us and this knowledge came and evolved from the ancestors to them. So they shared all that knowledge. We knew who we were, you know, and everything was the way it should be, and our mistakes were less. Because they understood that in the human being, there is what is, for terminology, strong and weak. Humans have human weakness. So they created their participation in reality so that was always balanced. And it didn't wreak havoc on the natural world. The religious reality understands that human beings have this weakness thing, all right? So they exploit it. You know, they manipulated it. They created their perception of reality on that. So anyway, out of this whole thing, here we are now today, and we need to be real to ourselves. So, you know, and every experience, life is a continuum of experiences. One experience after the other. So we don't have the old teachings the same way that we had them, but we have encoded in the DNA the inherent right. We know what's right and what's not right. We have it in there. So now we have the experiences that we have had, and any of the experiences that was a negative experience or a not right experience, then the purpose is to learn from it. See, not to judge any experience, judge nothing. Judge absolutely nothing. It's irresponsible to judge, because when we start judging, then that means we're not looking at things clearly and coherently. Recognize what is. Recognize, don't judge. Recognize. See, we need to learn to do this, because this is going to make a whole lot of things more clear. But anyway, we need to be real to ourselves. And being real to ourselves, if that means, you know, I got stuff on here that's like really, I don't want anybody to know about, well, I shouldn't lie to myself about it. Now, should I? I should accept that, hey, I got this habit, whatever it is, right? I got this thing here, all right, that doesn't make, see, we have to accept every part of ourselves. If I have things in my life that I do or that are there that I can't live with, then I need to face that. You know, and if I participate in that and I do that, then I just got to be real to myself. I'm doing this, and this is kind of fucked up, but I'm doing it, and I don't really understand why. But if I face myself about doing these things, all right, and I can't handle it, it will evolve out of my behavior pattern, and it will evolve out of my thought pattern. New things will replace it. If there are things in the behavior pattern that make one uncomfortable, right, make me uncomfortable, but I can live with it, then I will live with it. And if it ever reaches the point that I can't live with it, it will evolve out of the thing. But the deal is, because it's very important that we accept the total of who we are. We have to accept every part of who we are. This is about respecting the Creator. I'm talking about, reality of respect to the Creator is we have to accept every part of who we are. And if in that, but we can't hide behind rationalization and justification. We got to be real to ourselves. Because if we can't be real to ourselves, then we will never have a synchronized basis of reality in our lives. Because part of our responsibility, so to speak, we anchor our own reality. But it comes in being real to ourselves. Because if we want, see, because our relationship to power in this, look how by not being real to ourselves, look what the power that we represent and we generate, look what it's done in our lives. Emotionally, intellectually, physically, look at it. See, so because this is reality of power here, see, but when it wreaks havoc in our lives, see, then we do feel powerless, right? And have to accept things that we know are that the citizens and the workers have to accept things that the human beings know are unacceptable. You know, so that means there's this thing going on. But to what brings it back is when we make the decision that we will use our intelligence as clearly and coherently as we can. And I'm saying that we need to be real to ourselves as a part of that without judging it, recognizing it. The Navajo, they have this way, they say that you go to the fourth mind to look at a thing. And see, basically, it means you look at things. It's almost like you pick it up and you look at it from every side and every angle and from the top and the bottom and inside, and you recognize it. And then you make your decisions what to do. But we have this reacted thought behavior pattern. Reacted thought behavior patterns that have been programmed into us, and it has been programmed into us. Moths and other sacred wings. Butterflies and bees whisper in breath of the wind. Blessed ways, blessed way things. Dreams are the mind's streams, thought pictures of the spirit. There are dreams of the day. There are dreams of the night. Thinking and dreaming are related. Dreams of the day we make our own. Dreams of night, part of eternal stone. There are dream takers taking from dream worlds, taking dreams as a way of stealing thoughts, turning minds inside then out. Dream slavers want to change our connections to ourselves, mess with our dreams, make us unsure, unclear about right and wrong, feed our dreams and instincts to industrial profit machine. Difference between dream and fantasy, reality and illusion, center and no center. Dreams of the day keep our spirit alive, our creative mind who we really are. With dreams we can create and heal, follow our original purpose. Dreams are protection, good medicine, blessed way things. Sun and moon continue. We are all on one journey. And in this way of erasing, of changing the perceptual reality of the human beings. See, now I don't know exactly when all this started, but you know, we all have a tribe that we come from. And back in the time of the tribe, when we all were all in the tribe yet, all right, there appeared some point back there this technologic perceptual reality. And it altered the perceptual reality of the people, and it was an imposed altering. See, no, and the original ancestors, none of them willingly embraced this new perceptual reality. It was imposed through violence and brutality. But so I don't know exactly when it began. You know, I know the Greeks had, you know, they had their trip going, which was around, you know, all the God trip and this and that, and, you know, and their democracy stuff, and what's that, 3,000 years, 4,000 years ago, you know. So somewhere, let's just say, in the last 5,000 years or so of man time, right? In the last 5,000 years or so, this thing kind of happened here. But it was, but it went slowly through the generations because it needed to spread. Right? It needed to spread. And this is about changing the perceptual reality of the human being. It's about changing the perceptual reality of the human being. But I know that by the time Columbus got here, the descendants of the tribes of Europe no longer remembered what it meant to be a human being. They had no more, it was not a part of their perceptual reality what it meant to be a human being or what it meant to be the people. This had been erased. This had been erased from their perceptual reality. And because that had been erased from their perceptual reality, see, they never had a real spiritual relationship to reality anymore. Because we know by the time they got here, just by the intensity of the violence that was committed, it shows that these were a powerless people. Because it manifested in their violence. And it's not, and I'm not judging or anything, this just happened. But when we look at the descendants of the tribes of Europe, when they got here, they no longer knew what it meant to be a human being, right? Or the people. Because, so by the time they got here, we know that the tribes of Europe had been devastated with this thing now, because they no longer had the memory. All right? The memory of a spiritual relationship to life. But let's look at, what happened to them. In what is called, in what is the recorded history, what happened to them, was by the time 1000 AD or 1100 AD or 1200 AD, after the church had remanifested itself, because the church didn't really start to manifest itself till about 300 AD, and there's things like that going on. And so, but by 700-800 years later, 900 years later, see, they were getting a little bit stronger and a little bit more in there, right? And the descendants of the tribes of Europe, but by that time, the descendants of the tribes of Europe had already spent centuries, all right, not being tribes anymore, because after the Romans and them came through, see, and then landlords and royalties and things started emerging. See, this caste system started to emerge, all right, and so whoever was the king and the royalty or the landlord, see, they got to own all of the land of Europe, and then they therefore owned the people that were on the land. So even then, the people, they were just a different kind of sheep. They were owned by the property owner, and that's just the way that it was going at that time, the way that it had evolved at that time. But they were still praying to spirits. See, they still prayed to spirits, and I mean, what you have left over is Halloween, But they were still praying to spirits, and they still had a spiritual relationship and accessibility to life, and therefore they still had this power that, right? And then the church decided sometime after 1100 AD, the church made this decision, this religious decision, that it was God's government. It was the authority of God on earth. These men could exercise the authority of God on earth. So they became God's government. All right? See, but the descendants of the tribes of Europe, they were owned by the property owners and all this and that, but see, they weren't all overtly religious. They were still praying to spirits, and they didn't need to go this way, because they still had this other way to pray and do things. So the church made this decision, see, and it's almost like, if you look at it just, very crudely, the royalty and the landlords, they owned the surface rights. Church wanted mineral rights. Remember, we're made up of water, metal, and, remember these things, right? So anyway, they created what they called the Inquisition, and the Inquisition the purpose of the Inquisition was to alter perceptual reality. But they did it. But the other thing, but they didn't say that. What they said was it was their responsibility to wage war, a war to possess the souls, spirit, right? To possess the souls of the godless, pagan, and heathen people. So they waged a war to possess the souls. All right, so it's like taking property, natural resources, but they waged a war to possess the souls. And the way they waged this war was as violently as the technology they had at that time worked for them. And the gig worked like this. If you were accused of thinking differently than the church wanted you to think, then you were guilty of being in league with the devil, a godless person, right? And therefore the church had the right to interrogate you, torture you, execute you, take your property, and possess. I guess that's how they get your soul. See, so the descendants of the tribes of Europe, they'd been through this for, 300-400 years by the time Columbus got here. See, so in that time span, whatever memory they had of being a human being was gone. They were just brutal. They had just been brutalized. So they had no true spiritual, even because you look, the ones that represented their holy men, the ones that represented their spiritual men, the preachers and the missionaries and them, they went into the other tribal worlds, right, and set the tribal people up for the bad guys to come in. See, so there was a thing here, and not judgmental, right? But this did in effect happen. So by the time that the descendants of the tribes of Europe arrived here, the memory of being a human being and what it meant had been erased. See, and I'm bringing that up now because you see, we're all here now, right? And we're here in the right time and right place by the act of life itself, all right? We're here where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be. It's just about, are we doing what we're supposed to be? And we need to remember who we are about the human being thing. What it really means. We need to have our accessible reality to what that means to us, because our relationship to power is there. They tell us, the more money we make, the more powerful we get, but that's not true. The more money we make, then the more access to authority we have. But remember, there's a distinction between authority and power. They tell us whoever has the biggest army, right, that the more powerful they are, but no, they have violent, aggressive access to authority. But that's not about power. But if you and I walk through our lives believing that that's what power is, then we will never recognize ourselves in the relationship to the reality of power, because we've already externalized it. And so, about the language that we're speaking, the mining process, right? About the language that we're speaking. See, every word is power, because every word is when you're putting a sound into the vibratory world. Like throwing a pebble in a pond. So every word has power, and so there's a reaction or a result to every word put out there, even though we don't really understand it or get it. It's going on. But a part of that is, but what I see, what I call the result of this, what I see as a result of this, see, it's a way of us not using active thinking. It's like, and I want to use the word like believe as an example, because this whole perceptual reality thing that ever went on, it was, because another way of saying changing our perceptual reality, the other way that could be said is to make us believe what they wanted us to believe. See, so we need to look at words, because each word has its own meaning, and maybe some words have, it's in the tone or the way it's said, and it has another meaning, but we use words carelessly. See, we don't understand the meanings. We don't understand a way. I think it's better to say, I don't know, I know, or I think, than it is to frivolously say, I believe. And the frivolous usage of I believe is because we just are comfortable, and it just, right, because believe is it's either a dangerous word or it's a very sacred word, and it needs to be used so very carefully. Right? Or either it's just down out dangerous, right? Because it just, there's something about that word, But it's like when I look at it, if I know, then I know I know. And if I don't know, I don't know, see? And if I think, I'm thinking. But when I'm believing, it's like just sitting at the table waiting to be served. There's nothing going on, man. And we're... And it's like we're programmed with reacted thought. See, so this is, again, danger. See, so what we believe, what we think we believe is really reacted thought. We're not even really thinking. See, we're using reacted thought, all right, to define our beliefs, all right, within the limits and boundaries of the beliefs themselves. We don't go outside. We don't go to the fourth mind, so to speak. See, so what this does, it's like shooting up heroin, to take a trip. But it's not active. We're not using our intelligence actively. See, and this is not a minor thing. It affects a major part of your reality. This is not frivolous. It affects a major part of the reality. The trick words that are there that keep us from activating our intelligence, but create the illusion that that's what is happening. And we have the ability to understand this and see all of this, but see, we have just been programmed not to like ourselves enough and trust ourselves enough and recognize ourselves enough and accept the whole of who we are. We've been more programmed into denying too many of the parts and things like that because we can't handle it, right? See, so we just don't really access our power in a clear and coherent manner. And another one, hope. And if there's anybody named Hope here, this isn't about that. Okay? This is about a different kind of thing. When I was going to school, they told me, I was 9 or 10 or 8, 6, something. But I remember them telling me, not me, the class, the story of Pandora's box, about evil. And I think it was the Greeks. But anyway, they said, the gods gave Pandora, but this was also like when they were still going from the earth mother people to the god people, and they were still trying to blame things on women, see. So the male gods, they gave Pandora the box of evil and told her not to open it. And Pandora, being a woman, right, did it, opened it. So the 7 evils of the world or whatever came out of the box. All right, but an 8th thing came out of the box, see. But hope came out too. And they said hope came out of there to help us cope with the evil. I mean, I was young and dumb, but I got that. Hold it here. Why didn't hope have its own box? It's the box of evil, don't you get it? It's the box of evil. Of course, hope's lying to you. It's the box of evil, don't you get it? And I'm saying this because it's another one of those things that's waiting to be served at the table. We're not active. We should pray, we should think, we should act. See, but to sit and hope, all right, or just to believe, because these words are comfortable, see, they affect our perception of reality. So we need, and sometimes we use words, all right, we use words that we don't really mean. We're just using them, right? See, but if we use the word, once we put it out in the vibratory world, there's an effect to it. So if we're the ones putting the words out, this is something that keeps us from synchronizing because, anyway, right? So we need to understand what it is that we're saying. See, and everything when I'm saying about our intelligence being our medicine and our healing, our self-defense, see, anything that is there we can fix. It's about making, whatever it is one does in their life now, whatever decision one made, that they were going to do so that they would be able to make a living in this reality, get the job, the economic, whatever decision one made to do any of that, they told their intelligence that this is what they wanted to learn how to do, and they did it. It's the same system. I want to see more clearly and coherently. All right, and now, because I have a tendency to space things off, and get lost here, so I want to bring this up now, about DNA, descendant, now ancestor. Because when we think about it, what are we going to give to our descendants, all right, that's going to be truly helpful to them? I mean, of benefit to them. And do we realistically, and in the view of reality, do we think that the existing economic system, we get them some money in there and that's going to protect them? Do we think that the existing political system is going to look out for their best interest and protect them? Do we think, that, see, we need to make decisions about what it is that we're going to leave with the next generation. And see, because what all this is about is, it has to be clarity and coherency. It has to be clarity and coherency. It has to be an understanding of their intelligence, their relationship to their intelligence, their relationship to life and who they are, clarity and coherency. It must be a respect for their imagination and their creativity. We must respect it. We must respect our own. We must respect theirs, because you see, anything that's going, we were given intelligence to get it through the evolutionary reality. And the problems that exist in this world today, all right, that we tolerate, and a great many problems go on in this world, we just don't do anything about it because we can't. You know, so I mean, so see, and why can't we? It's because we have not been taught to use our creativity and our imagination in the way to do that. So we have to take upon ourselves the responsibility, all right, to doing it, all right? And in this way, because it's like human consciousness, it spreads. You know, it just kind of has its way of going. This is our relationship to the reality of power. Like it takes, you know, how many raindrops does it take to make it flood here? You know, but every once in a while they get together and they do it, you know? Well, let's just say we're all a raindrop. So, you know, the more clearly we become, see, then we have something that is of human value. The being, the value of the human being. We have something that is being passed to them. Something that is real, that comes from us. See, because the economic systems, the political systems, these things do not come from us. They never did come from us. We just bought that lie too, because we were forced to, because we've been made feel powerless. They don't, I mean, you know, I'm an Indian, right, or a Native, I'm not an American. No offense, but all right, older than America. See? But whatever it is, you know, see, I don't trust the democracy, you know. You know, and I'm going to bring this up too, because I think when I'm talking about really thinking, see, I think we have a responsibility to think about all things, even the things we've been programmed that it's wrong for us to think about. And maybe some thinking. Because if we cannot think a free thought and have free mind to think and consider every possibility, then, you know, without feeling like there's something wrong with us or that we have to hide, right, then something is wrong. You know, then you're not, you know, whatever it is. And this is about, again, about our responsibility to participate realistically in the reality. But anyway, about the democracy part. Going back, I mean, the Greeks had it, right? And I think the Romans had it at some point. Every one of them, if you just look at the birthing of this thing, every one of them had male-dominated patriarchies. Every one of them had class systems. Every one of them had slaves, you know. You know, so now there's a great beginning. So anyway, they got over here, and they said, majority rule. So let's look at this, all right? Because because I think it should be part. I really do. Everyone that's politically active, I think that you should have democracy, basic 101 in here, all right? All right? And the basic 101 is not too complicated or too long. Basic 101, American democracy. If you were an Indian, you were the majority and you were the enemy, so you didn't get to play. All right? If you were a woman, you were mentally inferior because this was man's business, so you didn't get to play. And if you were a white male that did not own property, you had no taxable value, so you didn't get to play. And if you were black, you were property, so you didn't get to play. All right, so there, majority rule. So the whole thing was decided by the smallest number of people on the hemisphere. And I think it needs to be seriously looked at, right? It started out minority rule, all right? And we need to understand that. And we need to see, and I'm not going to say, because I have had many people say to me, well, no, but if democracy is practiced the way it should be or whatever, so, and you get into the whatever, see, but no, democracy is practiced the way it's supposed to practice. Don't you get it? You know? It's practiced the way it's supposed to be practiced. All right? And that's just exactly what it is, which means that about 75% of the large mass, the energy field, the little oil field down there, gets fed upon. all right, to take care of the other 15 to 20%. And you're it. And its whole purpose is to maintain that status quo because it's a part of the mining process, you know. The Nazis run it their way, the socialists run it their way, the communists run it their way, the capitalists run it their way. But they all serve the same industrial master. There's an industrial ruling class on this planet, have created a class of ethnic rich. They create varying formed, what we will call governing religious behavior patterns, right? And their jobs is to do the mining. But it all rides on us believing in them and believing them. Right? You know, it all rides. See, I mean, hypothetically, if everyone got up tomorrow morning and said, I will not enable, if I know it's a lie, I won't enable it today. It would change. See, but that's not going to happen, right? Because someone else's truth is someone else's lie. Right? So it's not going to happen. But if that's what it takes, it's that simple. Right? But sometimes we got to deal with the lie, and we have to deal with it, see, you know. So I'm not saying people should stop dealing with what's going on, because we need to have the different activities, stuff that's going on, the different movements, organizing, you know, whether it's in our individual lives about trying to get more connected to reality, or it's, you know, for the good that we're trying to do through our social, or, you know, I'm not saying that any of that, I do not know that any of that should stop, see, but I know that I'm 55 years old. I started this in 1969, see, and people are still at the gates trying to keep the beast out. You know? So what happened here? You know? So something's missing. And what I think is missing is clarity and coherency. What I think is missing is that basic, deep-rooted self-respect. That's what I think is missing. All right? And I think because that's missing, these other things, you know, the movement still goes on, and we're still, you know, we're still at the gates holding that door and stuff. See, but the thing that needs to be added is so simple to add. It's just us. Just add it. See, because I think it's about that, you know, because, you know, okay, so now we come to, because it's about, you know, because the real thing is about not cooperating. See, you know, it's about how do we not cooperate. You know, I mean, you know, I'm going to try to remember to come back to this, but now I want to go back to democracy a minute here. Because I want to talk about this last election. No, well, yeah, well, I don't agree with any of you, so don't worry about it. You know, we're fine here. Yeah. I don't vote, right? I'm a member of the largest political party in America, and we're very upset with you voters. You fucked up. So, because I'm always getting attacked by the voters. You didn't vote, it's your fault. No, hold on here. So let's examine that, about this voting stuff. Because for people that believe in this democracy, or they have their systems are tied into it, then let's just talk about voting. See, I don't vote, because when I was the majority, they wouldn't let me. It's that simple, all right? And it killed me and make me the smallest numerical minority on my own land base, and then they say vote. Why? And, you know, it's just, to me, there's no illusion about this, all right? I voted in Amsterdam once, but that had nothing to do with you all, right? It was all harmless. Nobody was going to get hurt from that. But see, I don't think that the voters pick the president. I don't think they elect the president, you know. I just think it's all theater, you know. Wow, what a show. You know, I don't think that somewhere there's a boss man or a little group of boss men that tell the guy that programs the computer that tabulates the votes, here's how you tabulate this vote. And this is the way it'll come out. Now, this can be, I mean, and this kind of thing goes on, okay? And it happened in North Korea in, I think, like 1988. Some local radio station, one of the provinces, ran the election results the night before the election. And it turns out they had got their new computer the technology for the election from the U.S. I'm not making... Go look in the Los Angeles Times. Just look through the month of May. It's in one of their pages. That's all I could say, right? But anyway, but I knew that George Bush was going to be the next president, you know. But I didn't really see any difference between him and Al Gore, all right, just to understand this. You know, you had no choice and no choice, right? That's what it was. I mean, cut through it, right? But I knew George Bush was going to be president when the price of oil went up. Well, two things. The first, they named the CIA building after his dad. Now, there was a good clue. And a second Bush was not going to get beat by the Democrats. Because you got to understand who his dad is, you know, and where these people come from. See, so there's that, and he's an oil man. So when the price of gasoline went up unexplainably last year, right, about a year ago, it just went up, no reason, no nothing, you know, not any explanation, just, you know. And I thought, well, hold it now, and which affected energy prices. And I kind of thought, well, but Bush is an oil man. So if this was going to harm him, the oil industry would not be doing this. They wouldn't do it. All right, because they wouldn't jeopardize the payoff and the rewards of him getting into office. See, that was to me another sign that, well, this guy, you know, and what they're going to do is, see, and what I noticed, because I watched this thing, you know, brainwashing. So when I watched it, so by early spring primaries, they're talking about how close this election is going to be. So they start telling you, you're not telling them, they're telling you how close it's going to be. Right, neck and neck, see? Because remember now, if you want to create the illusion that something works, you got to get people to participate. See, they already know the majority of the people aren't even going to vote because this is nuts. It generates maybe billions of dollars in the economy, right? You know, people travel and do all kinds of good things. Because that's what it is. It's like a play. Right? So when they come in here, you know, but what I find interesting about it is that they made an issue of stealing it. That's what I still don't quite understand. They made an issue of it, you know. You think they couldn't have stole this thing and not got caught? Right? They manufactured the idea that it was a close race because they needed to have everybody participating in it and thinking that their vote really did make a difference. All right? Thinking that their vote really did make a difference. You know, and they dangled that hope out there about that. See, that hope, right? Dangled that thing out there, right? You know, people were going for it for the promises, see, but they knew that they would because they've been doing it for quite a while now. See, all right? And even when Clinton got in and did what he did, whatever his environmental protection stuff was, see, they always know, and whoever picks these people, they know that they can undo that later. See, because one of the things you watch, the Alaskan, the wildlife thing, see, that they want to go after. Remember, the energy prices went up gas went up a year ago, and Bush, as the candidate, starts talking about, well, we may have to go in there, see, and they'll, you know, and they're manufacturing energy, electric crisis, well, it's really a lot in California, right? You know, and just driving the price of everything up, engineering all of these kinds of things. See, so, and they're doing this to soften the people up, so they will go for coal-fired generators, and that they will go for drilling, and you know, but that was going to happen whether Bush won or Gore won. It was just who was going to be the point man for it, you know, because the Democrats get to play, they get to be in there once in a while, all right, and the Republicans get to be in there more, all right? But they do this because it creates the illusion of change. Because I'll guarantee you this Al Gore, you know, so I never saw him as really being president, you know, but I don't really have a particular fondness for Al Gore because to me, he's just a different George Bush, all right? And I'm going to say because AIDS, and this is why, see, this is what really pissed me off at Al Gore. AIDS in South Africa. All right, 1 out of 5 people or so has AIDS. They're heterosexual, which I find interesting that AIDS, you know, it started here with, they said, homosexuals and drug users. See, and I think it was an experiment. I think it was a deliberate thing that happened. I won't go into that, but I think it was a deliberate thing that happened, all right? You know, but over there in Africa, they said they spread it out amongst the heterosexuals, you know, and because they can study all this stuff, you know, nobody really knows what's happening, all right? But anyway, so, because they knew why it happened in Africa had to do because they knew they had to give up South Africa. They knew they had to give it up. So they left AIDS back. They deliberately left it there, all right, so to make sure that South Africa, it'll be many millennium before South Africa recovers from what's going on there now, so they can never really never be any kind of a real threat in the world, and the way they play empire. Well, anyway, now Gore didn't think all this up, but the pharmaceutical companies, they did not want cheap medicine sold in Africa, all right, and Gore was the one that worked within the White House to keep the Clinton administration, all right, from altering that. It's finally breaking through and leaking out now. See, so when you look at, and it was the Clinton-Gore administration that stole the Republicans' platform. It had to do with welfare reform and all this new stuff. So there are many women with young children and stuff, that have a harder time in life now than they had before then. See, so the deal is, if you're going to, if you get sucked into the vortex of playing and accepting the lesser of the two evils, at least know what the lesser evil is. Just understand what you're doing. See, the real issue here is that there's something really has to be looked at, all right? And I don't have the answer for you, but I trust everyone has their own intelligence, and that that collectively clarities emerge. Because anyway, I'm going into all of this is because, see, I hear all these people talking about, because I heard it on the receiving end, see, because I don't vote and I catch this stuff, right? But I always thought about, but you do vote, and you have no respect for it. See, I know how messed up I see everything. I mean, I perceive it to be, right? I know how messed up I perceive everything to be, so I'm not going to vote, because that's the way I see it. But that's my respect for vote, because it means something, all right? But people who run out here and do it, and they do it without respect. So we help to create these situations. And each generation inherits the situation created for them by the previous generation. All right? But somewhere, it has to change. More coherency must be brought in. We have a responsibility to the descendants. And we have a responsibility to however we perceive the Creator, however we look at the Creator, however we perceive, we have a responsibility to the Creator to be as real as we can, right? Because that's how the rest of this gets done. It's about that synchronization. So we need to accept ourselves, accept the holes of who we are. Sometimes I do things I don't like. I mean, I like them, but I don't like them. All right, well, too confusing here. But the deal is, I accept the total of who I am. And I know that I can have my, it's like, I made a deal with my demons, right? And the deal was, I won't fight the moments of incoherency, right? If they won't fight the moments of coherency. Because I'm an extremist. I would never be, for real, I'm not the role model, I really am crazy, and there's a lot of bouncing goes around here, but the real objective is to balance for me, it's about balancing the extremes, right? Just keep some kind of balance. But it's about accepting the reality of who we are. Because there's not anything wrong with us. We may have participated there, we know wrong and we've seen wrong and we understand it, but just basically what is really the essence and reality of who we are, there's not anything wrong with us. That other lie about man behaves this way because man is behaves aggressively. No, this is programmed in. We are the descendants of people who understood that all things have being. We are the descendants of people who understood that today is borrowing from the past as well as from the future. So that says that this is not about we are not the descendants of the bad aggressive programming that manifests itself through our reality now. It's not inherent in us. It's programmed in us. And it was programmed in us by them distorting the perception of who we are by our own viewing of ourselves. See, and everything else is a reaction to that. So what it takes, and there is no revolutionary solution. It's about an evolutionary solution. And we will influence the evolution. We will influence what's going to happen in this evolution, right? That cannot be altered. We will influence it. So once again, it's a matter of just doing what we do naturally in an unnatural way, all right? Is to do it clearly and coherently. All right? Because we will influence it. So the real decision is here, and whoever it is we want to blame, and I think we should be careful about that, but whoever it is, see, we have a responsibility in this too, and if we don't use clarity and coherency and some respect for our intelligence, all right, and our own selves, all right, if we don't use that, then we are behaving very irresponsible, and we can't blame anybody for anything. Because we must take responsibility for what we bring into life. You know, and because the thing that, because what's very dangerous about this blame thing, see, we are all responsible for what we do. You know, and what, you know, and this is about the being part. You know, being, it's about being careful about diminishing the being. We are responsible for what we do. All right? But we have fallen into this trick here about blaming, but like I say, no one makes me do anything. All right? I make the decision to do. You know, and I know that is real about each and every one of us. You know, and all the rest of it just, you know, it's a waste of our intelligence to try to view it in any other way. And it's and that's how we diminish ourselves. So we have a responsibility. So the real issue is, do we influence the future through in the evolutionary process? Do we influence it clearly and coherently, or do we influence it the way we feel now? You know, I mean, and this is, what's the feeling? Because see, living, a part of the living, you know, we got to send living memories and living thoughts and living feelings. This is what we must send to the next generation. They must have it. It's vital to living. You know, and we got here and we still have it. You know, all the distortions or whatever, but we still have living memory and living thoughts. See, and this is what because to protect life, all right? Just to protect life, because to me, now, all right, we're in a technological perceptual reality that is really in actuality based upon its perception is death. You know, and so maybe it's a long-lasting disease here, you know, it lasts, 7,000, 10,000 years, but it's perception of reality. So we got to live through it to keep the living thought and the living memory alive through it. But its perception of reality is based upon death. Because if everything that was murdered, just all life, whatever the form, that was murdered in excess, it was killed in excess, all right? Bled the same way that humans do, this would be a planet of blood, and the issue would just be how deep is the blood. I mean, when we really, really think about this. So for us, we have to stay alive. Its reality is death. It will die. Because that's its reality. That's its programmed reality. And we must be careful that they don't program that reality into us. Because we're all going to die. Birth is terminal. Hey, wake up. It's just part of the trip. But if we have the living thoughts and the living memories, see, then we understand that when this body goes down, see, the being, we're going with the ancestors. It's just it's a dimensional thing. See, and that is, we are the descendants of that reality. So somewhere, I guess now part of our responsibility is to make some kind of an understanding, because you got two distinct, see, because this other reality is you die and you're going to heaven or hell. But it's, but what I find interesting about it, see, is it's not really about spirit, it's about the human. Because heaven is very material and hell is very material. Pitchforks and shit like that. Thrones. So what's that got to do with the being part? What has that got to do with it? See, because fear is a result of all the fears and doubts and insecurities. So fear is what manifests all of it. So a part of this recognizing the reality of who we are, we're here to be here as long as we will be here. Right? And maybe if we've used any of it with any coherency, we will learn to understand. Because life is not about knowing the answers, it's about understanding the answers that we know. See, and this is what we need to start to put back together, to understand the answers that we know. And because our relationship to reality is in how we perceive ourselves and what it is we look to ourselves about. And now I'm going to get ready to start wandering out of here. But I thank you for getting whatever you got, and if I left anything hanging, well, that's just what it was. But I want to tell you a joke, though, right? But wait, I'm going to wait. I want to maybe read another poem. But, yeah. My mama didn't bring me into this world to let it eat me up. It might have beat me up, fucked me up, but it didn't eat me up. It might have woke me up, sounds from the crack of dawn. Somewhere hanging from an angel's wing, birth is terminal, and the ordeal is the happening in between. It might have shook me up, memories of the future. Remember not too long ago, I was lost and running without answers, not looking for answers, just lost and running. It might have messed me up, living on the defense for offenses I committed. And I guess those times when I don't care anymore are the most desperate or most selfish times I know. It might have tripped me up, breaking old promises to make new promises. In a dark side of good, sometimes trying is an excuse or a mind game played just to keep a thing the same. It might have twisted me up, times I wasn't responsible for what I did. Then come the times of consequence that I recognize as mine. And because I can still recognize, I know it hasn't used me up. My mama didn't bring me into this world to let it eat me up. And raven brought beaded serpent and the Alaskan thunder. Realities yet to come. Good thoughts, wrapped in the universe, the unborn sleep in dream time. Day and the sun is on its way. Think good thoughts, thoughts of lightened mind. Dream dreams dreaming brings, sense rush of newfound find. Follow the sky into the blue. You are part sky, sky is part you. There are stars that bring the night. There are thoughts to bring clear sight. Thinking good makes for strong heart, nourishment for spirit and soul, a good path, a good way to give. Belief creates what we believe. Good words, good thoughts, good actions, a way human beings live. Raven brought beaded serpent and the Alaskan thunder. Okay, my mind is falling apart inside, so time to split. But I want to tell you this joke, okay? And I thank you for being here, and I thank you for anything you perceived as coherent. I thank you for it, all right? Because I know I'm crazy, right? And I know something about you too now, right? but it's better. It's better. You know? But look, I mean, look at what the sane and the normal accept as being real. You know, so what's wrong? You know, not really right here. I mean, seriously, think about it. You know, at least, and I'm not nuts, but I have been. Right? And I have nothing against nuts, right? And I've been insane. I've been there too. And what I figured out about there is that just made I was more sane, right? Because insane, right? Insane would imply more sane, wouldn't it? So I figured the insane, they're the sanest ones all. They know they can't handle it. All right, now. Anyway, there were these two drunks were up in a skyscraper drinking, you know, and I don't know, maybe 8 million floors up, right? And they were up there drinking, and one drunk says to the other one, he says, you know, it's really cool up here because you can jump out the window and the wind throws you back in. No, that can't be, man. It doesn't work like that. He said, no, here, all right, so I have a couple more drinks. He's here, I'll show you. So he jumps out the window, and the wind throws him back in. So the second drunk said, hey, all right, I'll try it. And he jumped out the window and fell to his death. And the bartender said, Superman, you're such an asshole when you're drunk.